Hey, and welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host, Ruby, and today we're going to be getting back into the Octunnumi. Now, before we begin, I'd like to ask that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, grab a drink, grab a snack, or sit back and relax. And let's get to it, shall we? Really? Here? An exact replica of the Fospit Fethris family home stood, metaphorically speaking, in the shadow of the manor house. The gatehouse was in fact quite intentionally positioned in such a way that neither the manor house nor its occupants could either see or influence the little cottage, and as such went quite unnoticed, which had suited Marie Fosbit just fine. Not one for newfound status that had been thrusted on her family when Edgar Fosbit founded the alliance. Marie had insisted that while she would manage the house, functions, and events held in the name of her husband's work, she would not under any circumstances live there, and so the creation of her replica house came about. Marie had been quite particular about the spot high up overlooking the merchant sector and the magnificent structure of the Octunnumi HQ. The professor, more than happy to oblige, he was, after all, the reason she was there, and the reason she could not return to Fethris, excelled himself with the creation, using the project to perfect his newly acquired thought to things skills. The resulting charming stone cottage, with its whitewashed walls dripped with purple wisteria, fragrance roses tumbling over the pitched entrance porch, complete with pretty walled garden, was every inch the chocolate box country cottage. And we are sure this is the place? Trad asks, as they stand at the little wooden gate looking towards the gatehouse. It's not exactly hard to find, Reg responds, adjusting the cylindrical map carrier slung across his shoulders. I must look at this place like a dozen times a day. Talk about hiding in plain sight, Trad says. I'd always thought this place was empty. So did everyone else. Reg agrees. And haunted, Trad adds. Shaking his head slightly, Reg takes a sidelong glance at his brother. Well, no, not haunted, Trad says, 'cause that'd be stupid, but, possessed. About to comment, Reg opens his mouth. Well, not possessed. Okay, Reg stops him. Yes, there are a lot of stories about this place, and now we know why. To keep people away. Trad nods. Exactly. And this is where the professor has been all this time, right here. Apparently. And he has chosen now to come out of hiding because, who knows, Reg shrugs. But his timing couldn't have been any better, what with Nate and all. Not that we have any evidence that Nate means him or any of us harm. Really, Mr. Regis, still defending him? Really? Trad responds. You're still defending him? Even after what happened at the Hitherent? That's what Trevor said. Well, for once, I agree with him. Well, with all due respect, Trevor, Reg comments dryly, where the hell were you when we were in the Hitherend? I didn't hear you trying to stop me from following temptation. Well, sir, I thought you were supposed to guide me. Reg continues, protect me, make sure I stay safe, not potentially trapped in the Hitherend. That was never likely to happen. I assure you, Mr. Regis. You were in safe hands. Not good enough, Trevor. Quite, Mr. Regis. You are, of course, absolutely correct. It's just... Well... It's the Bewitchers. I have found that less is more when around the Bewitchers, sir. What? The Bewitchers. We have history. So I gathered, and they scare the living daylights out of me. Quite frankly, give me the heebie-jeebies, sir. Reg hesitates. I don't know what to say to that. What? What did he say? Trad cuts in. He says the Bewitchers give him the heebie-jeebies. Again, we agree. Trad smiles. I can only apologize, sir. It will not happen again. Still not an acceptable excuse in my book, Reg says. As I said, sir, it will not happen again. Right. Well, Reg mutters, not totally reassured. Better get on then. After you. Trad smirks as he opens the gate for Reg to go through. Following close behind, Trad lets the gate swing shut behind him. The latch clicks. The house explodes. Engulfed in a choking dust, the boys are tossed up in the air, crashing back down hard against the wall. Mr. Regis, sir. I'm good, Trevor. Where's Trad? To your left, sir. He is unharmed. Trad? Reg shouts through a coughing fit. I'm good, he replies. Through the smog. You? Yeah, Reg calls, checking the map carrier that is still intact as he struggles to get on his feet. Then, pausing for a second, says, Can you hear that? All I've got is a sort of humming. That's what I mean. As the dust starts to settle around them, the humming of a cheerful tune becomes clearer as a disheveled figure emerges through the billowing smoke. Tinted goggles peer at them from a smiling, dust-covered face. Sorry about that, old chap. The figure chuckles, removing his driving gloves. A slight limp evident as he approaches them. Wasn't expecting you so soon. Jolly good work, though. Jolly good work. Vigorously shaking Reg's hand on reaching him. Must say, you are looking good, even with the. He indicates the debris and dust. Been a while. What? Been a while. Professor? Trad ventures, getting to his feet. Yes, old chap. Edgar replies, in the flesh. Removing his driving hat and goggles, leaving perfectly clean areas around his eyes, he sighs wearily. Like I say, been a while. Edgar Fosbit, a professor of medicine and science, a crossover regen, since the early 1800s is aging. Not in itself unusual, but even Terrarians could halt the aging process. Regenerate, yes, but stay young forever? No. This had in fact been Edgar's speciality. In Fethris, the pursuit of reversing the body's deterioration. Both he and Marie had worked on this for years, although each specializing in different theories. It was this that brought him to the attention of the Octunnumi. So considering his work in the field, to see Edgar quite as advanced in years for such a young regen was alarming and slightly worrying. However, this accelerated and unexpected aging did not seem to have dampened Edgar's usual rakish self, having always thought himself as more aristocracy than mad professor. His preferred attire usually consisted of dapper suits of the 20s, the 1920s, an era he had warmed so considerably when he had first discovered it in the 1890s. So, as he unbuttoned the full length of his driving coat and drops it to the floor, it was no surprise to find that he is indeed wearing the very best that the 20s had to offer. Pressed baggy trousers, sports jacket, shirt and tie, slicked back hair, gray now, not the polished black of his younger self. Edgar Fosbit is still the very epitome of suave. As he removes his scarf, the extent to which he has aged becomes more obvious. In fact, it could accurately be described as decayed. With the dust clearly clearing over, the remains of the cottage, Reg points to the rubble. Your house. The professor looks back to the pile of debris that was once his wife's home and smiles broadly. Yes, sorry about that, old chap. Didn't mean to alarm. Just a bit of fun, eh? You could have killed us, Reg says. Nonsense, old chap, he replies, chuckling. You blew up the house, Trad states. Necessary, old chap, necessary. Shall we? Wiping the grime from his face with the scarf, then dropping it with the gloves, hat, and goggles on top of the crumpled coat, He heads to what's left of the garden gate, making it quite clear that that is the end of the matter. Hesitating for a moment, the boys glance first at the demolished house, then at the departing professor and back again before following him. Now then, I believe you have let my son escape, the professor asks, holding the gate open for them. Sir, Reg asks, you knew he was here? Of course, he smiles, and that he is no longer here. But he wasn't a prisoner. Trad interrupts his brother as he heads for the opening, brushing bits of the house from his coat. I'm not so sure that was wise, the professor mutters. Some restraint probably would have been a good idea. Nonetheless, am I correct in saying you no longer have his whereabouts? No, sir, Reg replies, following Trad. We do not. And that would be why I sent for protection? The professor adds, carefully hitching the gate close, taking a moment to look at what was left of the cottage. So, you know that Nate is looking for you? Trad asks, lightly touching his collar to refresh his uniform. And I believe Nate had access to the Hetherant? The professor asks, ignoring Trad's question. Yes, sir. Reg replies, picking up his hat, which had been thrown across the wall in the explosion, and uniform refresh. Places it back on his head. Anybody get out? The professor asks, still looking at the house. Out? Questions Trad. Sir, Bolivian was killed, Reg says. Yes, of course, he says with a broad smile, patting the gate and turning to the boys. It's what he deserved. I've no doubt you know the story. Yes, sir, the children. Reg nods. We were part of their mentor team. That you were, he muttered. What happened to the children? The experiments. Everything, he says, sighing. He was behind it all, you know, Bolivian. I blame myself, of course. I should have known. Picked up on something, he says quietly. Sir? He was one of us, you see. A friend. He pauses. I created him. You created? Well, put him back together, rather. The shoulder. He gestures his own. The mechanical attachments, my work, saved Bolivian from a life of paralysis. Put him back together after the Origent conflict. But wasn't that, Trad interrupts, brought to an end by the actions of a single Origent? The professor smiles as he passes. That would be Bolivian, young man. Wow, I had no idea, Trad replies. Not many do, the professor calls back. An absolute hero, without question. Never spoke of it, of course. Only grateful that he lived to see peace amongst his people. That was quite some work he had done on his body, Reg comments. Advanced even for Tarverlians. We were friends. The professor stops to look back at the boys. It was the least I could do, he sighs. And then I discovered that he is behind the youth serum atrocities, stealing my work. Good work. And turning it into... He pauses. All those poor children, he says quietly. Of course, it all came to light after. He glances at the boys. Well, you know, you cannot imagine the lengths I went to trying to get him too. But the Hitherant, he shudders before smiling and adding, and now we are to believe the children he took are alive. You know, sir? Reg and Trad exchange looks. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? This way, he calls, starting to walk up the gravel path in the direction of the manor house. Well, sir, Reg begins as they both move to catch up with the professor. Just because I am not running in and out of the Octunnumi every 2 minutes, the professor continues, does not mean I'm not in touch with what's happening, old chap. Of course, sir. He hesitates. But when we have tried to contact you... For what? He retorts. Some blasted stuffed shirt ceremony? No, thank you. Sir, Trad halts. The old man. Sir, we have to get you to... Yes, need to pick some things up from the house. The professor gestures to the path. But, Trad states, we hardly have time to. He indicates the lengthy walk ahead of them. Now, young man, he smiles. You of all people know that all is not what it may appear. Leaning forward, he grasps at the air and pulls back the country scene before them as easily as if lifting a curtain, revealing direct access to his study. After you. Still smiling, he holds the image up higher for the boys to enter. Wow, since when have we had these? Reg says as he steps through directly into the room that could have walked straight out of a movie set. So staged the interior. Everything was so coordinated, color coordinated. The room's symmetrical layout, central desk, matching facing chairs, identical sofas, everything having a place and everything in its place, and everything in the room felt fake. It was like the professor putting on a show, as was the style of the professor, from his speech to his clothes, even the environment. Everything about him had an air of showmanship put on, an act. His obsession with things being just so was evident everywhere. Not a thing out of place. Complete control. And although Reg knew, as he glanced uncomfortably at the glass exhibit cases arranged around the immaculately laid out room, the motionless creatures staring blankly out at them, were not the real thing, just the concept of dead animals, real or not, stuffed and mounted as art, was very much at odds with the Onistian's way. If ever he needed reminding of his purpose, this room would do it. Oh, it's just a multi access point, dear boy, he says, letting it drop as he follows. See? He points to the image, now behind them, tall, narrow, leaded windows encased in stone mullion. Looking back down at the path they had been walking. But how? Why? Well, the why is easy. The professor chuckles. Much as I appreciate the Octunnumi's view on teleportation, it is very long way to the cottage, you know. So I developed this. Unless you know where to yank, he says, pulling back the image to demonstrate, revealing the point from which they had just come from, then dropping it again and rapping on the glass. It is inactive. Impressive, Trad says. And the how? Ah, well, that is a whole different matter and my little secret, he replies, tapping the side of his nose. And do the Octunnumi know about this? I wouldn't know for sure. I may have told them. The old gray matter's a bit fuzzy these days, he says. You may have noticed I am, as my fellow beings would say, not getting any younger. Yes, sir, Reg ventures, exchanging a glance with his brother about that. Heading for his desk, Edgar laughs, brushing off any embarrassment. Oh, well, you know, we were never sure if the crossover would work, let alone last. I think I've done quite well, don't you? Had more than my fair share of good innings. All things considered, but yes, it would seem that my time is counting down, no different to my original state of being. Of course, just a little unexpected. He pauses, gently touching his desk. I had rather gotten used to the notion that my conscious self would live forever. Have more time, you know? After all, we know where this will end. He gestures to his aging body. I am already losing my abilities as well. It would appear that this will be my last regen. He hesitates as he sits. Yes, more time, he finishes. I'm afraid that I am, after all, nothing more than my roots, a typical Amunerian who always thinks they have all the time in the world. But sir, why don't you regen? The professor interrupts. You think I haven't tried? He sighs. I'm afraid that merely accelerates the aging process. I'm of course studying the phenomenon. He glances around the room, in the hope that I can find a way to reverse, even halt, the march of time. But, as we speak, I have nothing positive to show for my efforts. In the meantime, I am resigned to my fate. But this, he smiles, changing the subject. This, the children alive, Edgar slaps the desk. Well, now that is interesting. Finding them would mean my research would accelerate. It could escalate. And Abigail, sir? Wet Reg queries, not quite sure that the professor has fully grasped that his youngest daughter could be alive and well. What? He replies vaguely. Yes, of course, Abigail. He nods and repeats, of course, Abigail. So, you saw Boliviant? Spoke with him? Yes, sir. And no one accessed his thoughts to find the children's whereabouts? Edgar gestures for the boys to sit in the chairs facing the desk. They were removed, sir, by Nate, who then brought this image to us, sir. Reg answers as he offers the image to the professor and then seats himself in one of the facing chairs. Really? The professor says, taking it. And what about his soul? Did he bring that too? Sir? Reg asks. His soul. Wait, you know about... And why did he bring it to you, the image? The professor cuts in. Why go all that trouble only to hand it over to the Octunnumi? We don't think that's what he was there for, sir. Reg replies, we think he just happened on it, trying again. He says, sir, how could you... And what do you think he was looking for? The professor continues, placing the image on the desk without so much as a glance. As I said before, sir, we have reason to believe it's you, Trad states, leaning against the back of the empty chair, watching for a reaction. He's looking for you. The professor laughs, and I am inclined to agree with you, young man. We were wondering if you knew why, sir, Reg asks, picking up the image and returning it into his pocket. Blowed if I know. He laughs again. I haven't seen hide or hair of Nathaniel since he was 20, the first time around, that is. Of course, he was Nicholas then. It's no secret what happened. Didn't you read him? Yes, sir. Reg nods. It seems that he has no memories, sir. No memories, you say? None? None that we could access, sir. Right. Is this permanent, the memory loss? Or... he asks, as he walks to the one of the bookshelves lining the walls. We're not sure, sir. It looks like he was blocked, so it may just be temporary. Blocked? He selects a book. Blocked by whom? Well, sir, we don't know, sir, Reg answers. And the girl? The professor flicks around the pages. Girl, sir? Apparently I have a granddaughter, he states, returning the book. Sir, with all due respect, Reg stands. That is classified information. How, young man, the professor snaps, spinning to face Reg. I founded this organization. I take it I am still allowed access to information regarding its workings? Yes, sir, of course, but... And do you not think I should know about my granddaughter? But, sir, We haven't confirmed it yet. Well, that is easily done. He smiles. Take me to her. I know she is not at the Octunnumi, so where is she? Well, come on, man. In the Octunnumi facility. Reg hesitates. In Fethris, sir. What? The asylum? The professor flares. Yes, sir. Under the circumstances. So within a matter of days, the professor marches across the room, picking up a large carpet bag, into which he proceeds to bundle stacks of paper and seemingly random files. You have found both estranged family members of mine. One of which you lock up in a mental facility, he shouts, rummaging in his desk drawers, and the other you have allowed to disappear into the depths of the Insomads without a trace. Well, it seems to me that we need to address both of these issues. He slams the bag shut and fastens the clip without further delay. But sir, Reg says, we have orders to take you to the Octunnumi HQ. Sir, planning on locking me up as well? He shoots. No, sir, of course not, Reg insists. It's for your own safety, sir. Following a short silence, the professor says in a measured tone, I take it that is the Apfum Wingloak, looking directly at the cylindrical container over Reg's shoulder. The live map? Reg replies, yes, sir. Well, come on, man. Let's have it. Unsure, Reg hesitates before reaching for the scroll. And that is the end of this chapter. So, there is something fishy about the professor. I'm not going to deny that. Whether he is behind something or whether he's actually the bad guy, we can only find out in the later chapters. But maybe that the lady is his granddaughter. But we're gonna find out in the next chapters to come. And I also wanted to share that I am going to be, apart from the Octunnumi, I'm also going to be reading some ghost stories and paranormal stories as well. If you guys would like that, please leave a comment down below so that way I know, and definitely cannot wait to read more of the story and see where it goes. You know, comment down below, what do you think is going to happen? And this is Ruby, signing off.